If you're looking to start your therapeutic microdosing journey, but don't know where to start, especially when looking for the highest quality ingredients, including nootropics, and what you'd expect from a true microdose capsule, check out our friends at Brainsupreme. They offer the absolute highest quality ingredients so you can start your microdosing journey knowing that you're getting top-notch ingredients. To find out more, visit their website using that link right in the description, and you can get 15% off your entire order. Hello friends, I am so excited to tell you about Independent Media Token. Independent Media Token is a brand new way to show your support for independent media without having to donate a dime. Independent Media Token is a cryptocurrency on the Solana blockchain designed to generate funds to promote and foster the growth of independent content creators, allowing them to engage in their art without having to worry about being demonetized. Through a network of media partners, of which you yourself can become a part of, Independent Media Token's goal is to ensure the powers that be can never cut off all of our areas of funding and censor the only free voices left in the world. Join the movement today. You can pick up Independent Media Token using Phantom Wallet or the Solana wallet of your choice, where you can easily swap your Solana for IMT. Grab some IMT today and remember to always know your team. To learn more, visit independentmediatoken.com or use the link right in the description.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. The invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, the systems which are in place to keep the world sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Today my guest is Karen Holton. If you're looking for something to watch this Halloween, check out my films. Doors of Perception, available on Amazon Prime. Occult Louisiana, available on Tubi, Roku Channel, Apple, and more. Great films to watch for the holiday season. We are booking guests for December. If you have suggestions or you'd like to be a guest, email me forbiddenknowledgenews@gmail.com. Today I want to welcome back to the show Karen Holton. She's an experiencer, holistic coach, author, and host of the Quantum Guide show, Aliens and Angels, and Unseen Nexus podcast. Karen, welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks so much for having me on your show. I'm really excited to let everybody know about what's going on in Canada. This is not the complete picture by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a tiny piece, but it's big enough that we could do a whole show on it.
Definitely. We're going to get some updates about what's been going on in Canada as it relates to the totalitarian government and the agendas being implemented as we speak, how it'll affect Canadians, and the slippery slope that is possibly coming down the pipeline right here to the United States if we're not careful. There's a lot going on that's really important for people to be aware of, even here in the United States. We don't often think about the consequences and some of the things that could affect us down the pipeline that are happening to Canadians right now. So very important stuff to discuss. Before we get to that, remind the audience a little bit about yourself and let them know how they can find out more.
Thank you, Chris. So I'm the host of the Quantum Guide show. And if you want to watch the videos, you would go to my YouTube or many other platforms, Odyssey, Telegram, X, at Karen Holton TV. I'm also part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, and you can find me under Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton. And I have a book out called Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors, about my real life paranormal life and my experiences, which is available on Amazon.
I don't know where you wanted to start with everything today. You sent me something first about a Bill C8. It will have some pretty detrimental effects on your freedoms over there, but tell us a little bit about what's going on and where should we start with this?
Yeah, okay, Chris. I do have a clip I would like to share to kick things off. But I want to start by saying Bill C8 basically makes it so that the Canadian government can just remove any all the telecommunication services from anyone anytime they deem us as a threat. So that could be interpreted as some of my content, other Canadians' content, and if they decide that it's a threat, they will not only remove us from all internet access, they'll also remove us from cell phone service, from everything. And that's why I want to play the clip, because it's an actual member of parliament speaking before parliament, talking about the risks. So long story short, if I disappear one day, guys, this would be why. And we know from the truckers convoy how they were able to close people's bank accounts and do all kinds of horrible things, and put them in jail for extended periods of time when they hadn't done anything wrong. So I take the threats in Parliament very, very seriously. And let's face it, a lot of what we know to be absolutely true and accurate could be labeled by the government as misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. They've come up with all these titles that justify them taking action against us. So I thought I would just start off by quickly playing this clip, and then we could get into it if that's okay with you, Chris.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, here we go.
Now on to the present bill. I am concerned, as I say, by the following sections. 15.1 and 15.2 give the minister the unprecedented, incredible power to kick any private Canadian citizen off the internet, to cut off their phone line, to turn off their cell phone. That is the plain language summary, but I will quote now the bill in its legalese. If there is reasonable grounds to believe that it is necessary to do so to secure the Canadian telecommunication system against any threat, the minister may prohibit a telecommunication service provider from providing any service to the specified person. Now, perhaps this might make sense to do in an extreme circumstance, if a person is trying to cause our satellites to crash or to jam military radar. But this section does not use language about extreme threats of physical damage or threats to national security. It says any threat. And as far as I can tell, given the Liberals' incautious and bombastic use of terms like misinformation, that being any information they don't like, or existential threat, for instance, the member from Milton called the leader of my party an existential threat to our democracy, which is, of course, bananas. So given their incautious and bombastic use of these phrases, it seems to me that the industry minister could deem any speech she doesn't like any threat, and then kick that person off the internet. This section reaches Chinese Communist Party levels of government overreach, and they should be ashamed of themselves. The bill gets worse, it does not get better, Mr. Speaker. 15.2 Clause 5 gives the minister the ability to make her decision to kick someone off the internet. Secret. So imagine that. You've annoyed the Liberal Party overlords, and they've decided to kick you off the internet and cut your phone line. You can't tell anyone that you've been cut off. I have no idea how this could even possibly be enforced, but imagine being put effectively in a digital gulag, unable to use the phone or the internet or your online banking, and if you tell anyone that this happened, you could go to physical jail. I do not doubt that the Liberals will stand and say that I'm being somehow outlandish in my interpretation of this. I am not. It is there in black and white. Let me quote it for them. It seems like they haven't read it. 15.2 Clause 5. An order made under subsection 1 or 2 may include a provision prohibiting the disclosure of its existence, or some or all of its contents, by any person. And if you aren't inclined to believe me, please just Google it. Bill C8, Canadian Constitution Foundation. There you will find October 1st, their October 1st, 2025 publication, where their expert lawyers corroborate my concerns. Mr. Speaker, I am sorry to say the bill continues to get worse. It does not get better. Section 15.4 says the minister may require any person to provide within any time any information that would help her make a decision under 15.1 or 15.2. So it seems to me that if this legislation passes in its current unamended form, the Minister of Industry could wake up one morning, decide that you or any other private citizen, maybe, possibly, she's not quite sure, could be some sort of threat to our telecommunication system, with no warrant, no trial, no automatic judicial review, she could compel Rogers or Telus to give her that citizen's address book, or their internet search history, or their browser history. This is unreasonable, and it is shocking. This is the Liberal Party under their new Prime Minister. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Wow. That is absolute insanity. So let's break this down for the folks out there. Not only is this bill going to allow your government to disconnect you from the internet, erase your online identity, essentially, but cut off your access to phone services and things of that nature as well?
Yeah, and a lot of us rely on our phones for doing our banking, for doing, checking in with family members, for all kinds of things that we've sort of been forced to do that. With my banking system, I used to do it through the computer, but then, of course, you'd still need internet. But then they discouraged that and wanted me to use my phone for everything. So losing my phone would be devastating to me on so many levels. The thing that worries me is who decides what's a threat? Who decides who's a threat? We saw during the trucker convoy, and I also, I don't know if I mentioned this in the beginning, but I'm not representing any party in Canada. I'm just a very concerned citizen. I'm not taking sides. Okay. But during the trucker convoy was a big shock because there was all kinds of people, Canadians, who were very concerned. They all met in Ottawa. Nobody broke the law, not in that group. There were some rabble-rousers who were sent in to make it look like they were troublemakers, but they were dealt with and discouraged from continuing. And it was completely peaceful. It was children in bouncy castles, people dancing in the streets, rock and roll bands, up on big flat deck trucks. And it was a really joyous occasion. Sorry, hang on a sec. I got to do a quick cough here.
Sure.
And they went in, the police and the powers that be did all kinds of crooked things. They went in and made it look like different illegal practices were happening. It was not true. Finally, they just called in not just all the, like RCMP, which is the federal police force, the OPP, which is Ontario Police Force, Ottawa's police force, other police people that we don't even know who they represented because their names and their badges, everything were gone. They just were dressed in these, heavily armed suits with their shields and their sticks, and they were extremely threatening. Their faces were covered, and they went in and they kettled everybody, which means they pushed everybody into one central location, beat the shit out of these innocent Canadians. The Prime Minister called that said the country was under martial law because the threat was so great, and they had horses trampled an old woman with her walker. Like, it was beyond sickening. And then the thing is those of us who are common citizens, we have to follow the rules. So in order to fight this, we had to go to court, right? And it takes years, 3, 4, 5 years for your case to be held. And eventually, although I guess this was in 2020, so it was only 3 years ago, but still, the government, the highest court in Canada, said, no, you have no grounds for martial law. What you did was wrong. Well, this is 3 years later. People already been beaten, put in jail. People were put in as political prisoners for the most minor charge of all, called mischief. So, I mean, if they could do that then, what's to stop them from doing this now? And then another thing I discovered, I don't have a video clip for it, but if you do some research, you should be able to find it. Mark Carney, who was the appointed and so-called elected, let's not get into that whole rabbit hole, He is the head bankruptcy guy for
Mm.
BlackRock. So it's his job to go into countries, bankrupt them, and then BlackRock comes in and buys everything for next to nothing, pennies on the dollar. And that's how BlackRock is getting to own everything. So the other part of this is Mark Carney, the current Prime Minister of Canada. He is also a big high up and very involved in the WEF, which is the World Economic Forum.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, he's driven businesses and ways of making money out of the country. He has said that you can't have any they want oil and gas to disappear. We have 10 years left with our gas powered vehicles, then we have to all use electric, building the 15 minutes, the whole thing. He is all he's about. And seriously, he's like Mr. Burns off of The
Yeah.
Simpsons, and it's incredibly terrifying. So now, when we hear about this Bill C8, we know they mean it. They absolutely mean it. Well, we're already jumping through hoops just to keep our YouTube videos from being pulled and our channels from being canceled. We're already in this high state of performing, for the overlords, and now this comes out. So I got to tell you, I'm concerned, and like I said, quite literally, if I disappear, you know what happened, and there's
No.
not much I can do about it. I'm not a rich woman. I can't afford, legal representation. Even then, it may not do any good.
Am I correct in saying that it can be completely secretive, meaning they don't have to tell you at all if you're on their banned list or if you even get banned, right?
Yeah, you just wake up one morning, you have no internet, and your phone, no cell phone service.
Wow.
And you have no way of even tracking what went wrong. And it's being powered by AI. And we know AI makes mistakes at least 51% of the time. So, what could go wrong with that?
Right. Am I correct in saying that you've also had recent legislature that bans much of your firearms there?
Yeah, I was going to include clips, but if I included clips to everything, we'd just be a show of solid
Yeah,
clips. So I wanted to talk about it a
sure.
bit. Yes, they've been systematically banning firearms. And if in the House of Commons or member or in the Parliament, they're saying, oh, we're just getting rid of the AK-15s. No, they're not. They're taking away, like, for instance, I live in Alberta. There's a lot of farmers here. Farmers often have to go out and shoot different kinds of rodents and things that are interfering with the crop, or may even have to take down a wolf or something from time to time, right? There's a lot of people that depend on hunting rifles to go out and get
Mm,
food. Once a year they go out in the fall and they get themselves an elk or a deer or something, and that feeds their, not just their family, their community throughout the winter time. Well, now even those guns that they call 22s, which I believe are the smallest caliber um, um, shells that you can get for your rifles and stuff. It's pretty hard to bring anything down with
mm.
that. Even they're being banned. And they also have another law out that if you have something that's not considered an armament, like for instance, if you've got a pellet gun or something, you can't have any of those either because they look like real weapons. So, long story short, they've introduced this buyback program. They've told everybody that they're going to buy back your weapons from you if you declare them. You're supposed to declare them, and it's supposed to be voluntary. But if you don't divulge that you've got armaments, sorry, I don't know how to say it, guns and rifles and stuff, that they will give you pennies on the dollar of what you paid for it. And so it's just insane. And so we know that the majority of lethal weapons used in Canada come in through drug cartels and terrorist groups, and they can keep doing what they're doing because they're not honest. They're not going to say, yes, it's true, I have a rifle, I have a 22, I use it for shooting gophers, you know?
Yeah. What is this ban
Yeah.
based off of? Is it that they're trying to spin gun violence is actually occurring in Canada? Is it just based off of the incentive that they're going to give you cash for your guns? Or are they trying to sell it based off of recent events here in the United States? Gun violence here. What are they basing this off of?
Well, I don't know for sure, but I have my suspicions, and this is in my humble opinion. I'm not presenting facts here. I'm presenting you with my opinion, and that is it that's why
Karen,
you
you
have the
froze
Second
up right when
Amendment.
you were about to give us the answer. They didn't want you to tell us. Can you repeat yourself, please?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It just says I got a flash on the screen says my internet is unstable, which is actually not true. That is interesting. Okay, so um, um, in my humble opinion, it is much easier for them to subdue a population who is
Mm.
unarmed. And that's why you have the Second Amendment in the United States. In fact, it's your duty as American citizens to stand up and bear arms against threats domestic or abroad.
Right.
Right. So we don't have that in Canada, number one. And number two is you better believe a lot of people are going to grab their 22s or whatever to try to protect their family should the government overreach, escalate,
Well, that
which
is the
we
hidden
think it
agenda
will.
that is understood amongst people like us. But what are they trying to present as the reason for it being necessary for your citizens to give up their guns? Is there an excess of gun violence? Are they trying to manufacture false flag events over there? Or is it just that they're saying, hey, no more guns because we said so?
I think it's a combination of things. I think a lot of Canadians are very honest. The government says you have to register, you know, your rifles or your guns or whatever with the government. Then people line up and do
Right.
it.
Yeah.
It's just the phenomenon that happens here in Canada. A lot of Canadians are amazing people. They trust in God and their church to protect them, and they would not ever want to do anything wrong. So there's that. Second thing is, yes, there is some gun violence here, but there's also a lot of stabbings and a lot of other kinds of
Yeah.
violence that you hear about too. And so I think it's partly because they're going to I mean, if they're going to come on, if they're going to bring in bill C8, and there's a whole bunch of other ones, C9 and a whole bunch of other ones, it's just not even the tip of the iceberg. People are only going to get backed against the wall so far, so long, and they're fed up, and then they're going to go with the pitchforks and demand the leaders be handed over.
Mm.
You know, nobody is really on board with what's going on, and what's going on is happening due to lies and propaganda. So I think there's that. Yeah, and they sure don't want us standing up for our rights the way Americans
Mm.
do. They do not want that. Um, so interestingly, the premier of Alberta, where I live, she has said nobody's taken away your rifles and your guns, not in this province. She's standing up for a
Great.
lot of things, but it's also leading to the possibility of Alberta leaving Canada. And I'm not thinking it's going to become a 51st state. Actually, Daniel Smith, the premier of Alberta, has met with the Trump administration, who has said, we will support you should you separate from Canada. But separating is a huge job. Oh
Mm.
my God, what do you do about currency and, you know, police forces? And you need all kinds of things in place.
You mentioned the AI implementation to some of these policies. This is a big thing that's happening here in the United States. We will soon be essentially governed by AI. It'll be integrated into our law enforcement, and these are things that are all knowingly down the pipeline. When it comes to what's going on over there, with the technological aspects, talk a little bit about some of the things that they're trying to implement.
Well, I'm not sure how I should approach this, but I will say that I've been very concerned about AI. I've done a lot of research into it. Initially, I was all worried, Lordy, Lordy, the sky is falling, because I thought AI was going to take over everything and everybody. Well, what I found out from doing research is that AI is like, pardon my expression here, this is not going to be politically correct. It's basically like a retarded baby. It doesn't even know what it's doing. And so it's been oversold as this amazing way to cut costs and have government efficiency and all this stuff. But they're finding out that it not only does it lie whenever it feels like it might be threatened or just wants to, then they got all the retraining for it to stop lying. And all it did was the different major AIs went and buried their lying deeper so that you can't tell they're lying. So what kind of a foot are we getting off on with that alone, right? And so it's been oversold. So the governments, which are not smart people, these are not people who have any training on how to govern. An example is we had 8 years of a prime minister who was a failed drama school teacher. What in the hell of being a drama school teacher prepared him to run a country for 8 years? The current prime minister, he's the bankruptcy guy for BlackRock. That's what he specializes in. That's what he knows. How the hell is he going to fairly govern a country? And what do they know about AI? Only what they've been taught. So they've been oversold that AI is so great. So it's right now it's taken over the school system, and the education system is taking over the government, is taking, everyone's going, oh, how wonderful, wonderful. And no, what we're going to get is a whole host of problems. And it takes humans to go in and fix the coding errors, well, which means there might be a lot more jobs, but it's just all like a waterfall. It's just all escalating and flowing so fast, and it's just all happening so fast. And then the legal system, as I mentioned before, to try to get any justice is so slow. You know, we'll all be dead by the time. And I'm not trying to say they're trying to kill us, even though I might be saying they're trying to kill us.
Right.
I can't. I probably should censor myself on all that kind of talk, because I really want this video to get out there and to reach a lot of people. But so there's all of that. So the whole world is being hoodwinked by AI. AI maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, but again, it has the policies that it's been programmed with. It doesn't have really free thought. It has no morality whatsoever, no compassion, no empathy, no looking at the bigger picture. It's a mess already. It's going to be an even bigger mess in the near future. So with things like Bill C8, anybody who's standing up to speak out, bingo, silence. Not just silence, but punished with no internet, no banking, no nothing. And what are we going to do? Cry in our oatmeal, I guess.
It seems that what they're going to use as a barometer for this is some sort of social credit application to where they can monitor people's behavior, people's health, what people are looking at politically, what they're interested in, if they are deemed to be, like we were just saying, a threat or a domestic terrorist or some sort. They will easily be able to be identified based on these systems that are being implemented. And this is already something that has slowly been creeping its way into your Canadian government and the systems that are coming out. But we can look at things like the Big Beautiful Bill and Project 2025 here in the United States, and if you really study it, those exact same things are coming down the pipeline here as well.
Yep, absolutely. And I want to speak to the digital currency that they're going to want us. They've already done trials with it here in Canada. It's already been through all the readings. It's just for some reason they're waiting for the right moment to launch
Mm,
it. And the CBDC, I think is
yeah.
what it's called, and they say that everybody will have a livable amount of money, and don't worry about losing your job. You'll be taken care of, and all this stuff. But then I recently found out just last week they're going to use a token system. So, for
Mm,
instance, if you buy some tokens out of a vending machine so you can play some arcade games downtown, can you take those tokens to Safeway or to another a grocery store or Walmart and buy things you need?
negative.
No, they're not going to take it. That's not what it's for. So they're going to make this money programmable tokens. And then remember, we talked a little bit about the whole social credit score thing. Absolutely. I think they've already started
Hmm.
that because it's been 10 years since they were talking about, and you don't find this anymore on the internet, it's been scrubbed, that the police forces, especially the RCMP in Canada, is able to ascertain and punish thought crimes that you might be thinking of committing in the future. Like, how dystopian is that? So this digital currency, it's not like your Bitcoin that you can get a bunch of gift cards and spend places. Not at all. This is tokens that are programmable. So if you've been bad, you don't get any meat this month. And if you've been bad, and you can only shop at this store, which surprisingly would be within your 15-minute city area. So do you see where this is all
Hmm.
going? And then we haven't even talked about the MAID program, and now they're using that for organ harvesting in Canada. Another whole rabbit hole. But I
Wow.
thought, I'm trying to stay on topic.
Right, right. What are some other things behind some of these bills or anything else that's coming down the pipeline that you feel it's important for Canadians and us in America to know about?
Wow, there's so many. There are so many. Basically, I'll give you some examples. There's an ostrich farm in British
Hmm.
Columbia. Many of you probably heard about it. They have over 400 ostriches. The ostriches over a year ago got that H1N2 or whatever it's called bird flu, and they all recovered. They didn't just recover. They then started setting up labs and doing scientific investigations into their eggs and found that the ostrich eggs contain all the antibodies we need to treat almost any disease, including bird flu.
Wow.
That the medicinal properties of these ostrich eggs was phenomenal. And so what happened is word got to the federal and provincial government about this, and they went, okay, we have to exterminate the whole flock. We have to confiscate all
Of
the
course.
eggs. We have to kill all the birds. Now, the people that own the bird farm, they've had all kinds of people come and join them in so-called protest against the culling of these birds. But they're so stressed out and they're so exhausted. And so the BC government is doing things like, for instance, they've made it so they can't be in contact with their birds anymore. So these birds were literally treated as pets. They were given names, they were given love, they were very loving, docile, beautiful, and very healthy, as any veterinarian could find out. Super healthy birds, no
Mm,
reason to cull them. But of course, this is going to cut in on Big Pharma, right?
yes.
And, I can let your imagination go with it. And so now what they're doing is they're step by step exhausting the people who own the farm, exhausting everyone who's standing up for it. And they are stressing the birds with drones and things like that, so that a lot of the ostriches are literally committing suicide. They can't handle the stress, they panic, they run into fences, all kinds of problems. And now they're being sort of quarantined, where the government has built a wall all around them so the people who own them can't even get near them. And some of these ostriches are dying just because they're used to being treated like loving pets. They're dying just because They can't handle the stress. They're not having any human contact. And they're having to die alone while this is going to make me cry, while the owners of the farm just stand by and cry. I mean, there is really, human beings have no protection in Canada. We do not have protection. We do not have any sane body of people we can go to say, help us, help us. Nothing is working. It's all just so horrible. So I mean, there's another example. The other thing is all the crimes that have been committed by our government officials are not being dealt with. So for instance, for 10 years, contracts have been given to the friends of different people that are in charge of, taking the tax money and deciding where it should go and what it should do. And where's this money going? It's enriching the pockets of the very wealthy people who are probably, I don't know for sure, but might be providing kickbacks to the government officials that are assigning them all these contracts. And this was proven without the shadow of a doubt going on. Nothing's come of it. All the money they made from COVID and the COVID era, all that, there is no repercussions for anybody once they're above a certain level of, I don't know what you want to call it, but anyway, in Canada. And so a lot of crimes are happening and we can't do anything about it, not to mention the billions and billions that are being sent all over the world. I suspect it's money laundering. That money is going to things like in countries where women have no rights and are not even allowed out in public and have to be completely covered up. Oh, $6 million for gender equity and like all this ridiculous stuff all over the world to teach women farming. Like it's all written in the language of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it's all a hoax. And not to mention Ukraine and other countries. And so all this is going on. Meanwhile, every city in Canada is plagued by a homeless population, tent cities. And the only real relief you can get is you can sign up for MAID, which is medically assisted suicide. But now what they're doing is they're using it for organ harvesting. And so that's very lucrative. And so they're really encouraging people with mental health issues. One person had hard of hearing. That was the reason they euthanized them. Like it's just gone ridiculous. And so those with the power and the money are making the decisions, and the rest of us, I don't know.
They're basically turning healthcare practitioners into psychopathic murderers because they are encouraging the killing of people who have not even debilitating conditions. Some of them just have simple conditions that with change of diet and exercise can be cured, but they encourage up to being euthanized for some of the things that are ailing people in Canada, and they're encouraging people to just off themselves if they're a certain age, if they have a certain disease, if they have a certain diagnosis. It'd be just easier to just leave the planet than keep on sucking Canada's resources. This is the ideology that's being pushed out there to healthcare practitioners, and it's turning them into psycho killers, basically.
Yeah. And we know that the medical system, I'm not even going to call it healthcare, it's not. The medical system, first of all, no doctor has ever asked me, what am I eating? How much fresh air and sunshine do I get? How much exercise do I get? Do I have addictions? They're not concerned with any of that. They just prescribe pharmaceutical medication, or they'll line you up for surgeries. That's all there is. But the other thing is, even here in Alberta, where we have a premier who's doing her best to stand up for our rights, you can't go into any medical system without being fully masked up. So everyone's being treated like they're filthy, dirty disease spreaders. You can't go and have x-rays unless you're all masked up. You can't go and have blood work done unless you're all masked up. You can't go and see a specialist unless you're all masked up. And we've known now for a number of years that masks do nothing. It's a social control, a brainwashing, and a wear you down thing that they pretend. But just because they're pretending doesn't mean we're following suit, or that we're pretending. And so human life has very um, really almost no regard here. And then the thing nobody's talking about is human trafficking and child trafficking, which is rampant all across Canada, not to mention all the labs that are producing the fentanyl. And I got to give Trump credit for that, where he said, look, you want us to reduce our tariffs, then you get a handle on the drug production and infiltration into the United States. So there's all that going on. And then if you're an intravenous or a serious drug user, you can get on their program where you get all your drugs for free, except there's synthetic copycats that are far more destructive. Like, it's just nuts. Seriously, there are days I do not want to go and leave the property. It's nuts.
What solutions can we offer to people seeing that this is not going to get any better and we can't count on our politicians or global leaders to do anything at all for us? It's all going to be up to the individual or the smaller groups of people that want to change things. But what would you say are some of the steps that people should start taking? I know here the only way to win the game is not to play at all and to check out of as much as possible so you aren't reliant on the system. But what would you say?
I can only speak from personal, my own life. My own life is, except for today, I'm going to do a lot less poking at the truth as far as government and politics goes on my podcast. I don't want to lose my channel. I don't want to lose my communications. But I think my advice to other people is to wake up and see that the left and the right wing are part of the same bird. And we're going to play a clip before we close out today that is hopefully going to give people a heads up. So as long as we're completely involved in one side of the politics, the red or the blue, and we're pointing our finger and hating the people on the other side and doing all of that and thinking that there's some kind of religious fervor around one political party or another, that is going to keep people from waking up. That's a false sense of hopium. I think you'd agree with me on that, Chris, based on what you just said. The other thing is, I think people need to get right with themselves and right with God. So I'm not saying you need to be religious or have to be Christian, but there is something else that's higher than us, universal consciousness, whatever you want to call it. But you can't really get right with that force until you get right within yourself. So one of the common problems we have as humans is projection. Rather than look at ourselves and do an honest appraisal and do our shadow work, we cast our shadow onto everyone else, and then we hate them, we scapegoat them, we target them because we don't want to wear the shame and the shock of finding out who we really are. So that's why I say get right with yourself first, because if you can't be honest within your own realm of who you are, how can you really have meaningful contact with a higher power? So those are two things. Another thing that I'm doing is, I'm almost 70 years old now, is I'm taking the best care of my health I possibly can. I'm getting enough sleep. I don't hang out with people who stress and wear me out. I'm trying to eat clean and really good quality food. I'm just, did I already say get enough sleep? That's an important one for me. All kinds of things. Get right with your family. Stop fighting with them and bickering. Let them have their opinions. Let them be who they are. But I think, too, it means that we should probably, although I'm going to be more careful on social media, on a one-to-one basis, maybe we need to start sharing with other people, our neighbors, people we meet at the sauna or at the swimming pool or the grocery store, to help them to wake up. Eventually, they'll get it. Eventually. And so by vast numbers, I think Another big hoax that I think is coming is the false alien invasion. There's too much stuff saying that 3I Atlas is coming and all this stuff around that. Well, I've had ET contact and I can tell you they don't travel that way. That would not happen. It's a hoax. It's another, just one hoax after another. And really what we need to do is take a deep breath and just shut off the screen time sometimes. Just shut it off and spend time with ourselves. How are we feeling? What do we need? What's going on for us? Processing. There's so much information coming in from so many different sources. It's mind-boggling. We as humans were never meant to carry the burden of that much information. So we have to be more picky on the information that we take in. So I don't know if that's a start, but that's
Yeah.
what
Well, I
I'm
was going to
doing.
ask you a bit about Atlas and what they're trying to portray versus what could possibly be reality. As you said, you are an extraterrestrial contactee. You have been for a very long time. And there are many out there that are trying to portray this as some sort of threat incoming. There's a lot of theories surrounding what's going on in the UFO community, and no one can really agree with each other about what this really is, or if it's real, or if it's some sort of operation like you mentioned. But give us a little bit more about your thoughts on it.
Okay, and for those that want to find out more, I have a weekly podcast every Sunday, noon Mountain Time, called Aliens and Angels, where I interview people who are real life experiencers. And you get to hear all kinds of stuff that you might not hear otherwise. You might not hear, if you're just watching sensationalized channels talking about how horrible it is and the anal probes and all that jazz. There's so much more to it. But I'm going to make this as concise as possible. Myself and many other humans have had contact. The contact we have is always interdimensional and transdimensional. Now, some have experienced craft that seems solid and beings that seem solid, and that's quite well the reality. But the reality, the greater reality is that these beings have already been through what we're going through. They have an enormous sense of compassion and love for humankind. If they were going to come and kill us, they would have done it a long time ago. Some ET groups have even been here on Earth longer than we have. But there's always a transdimensional, interdimensional component to contact and to the ET presence. Now, when you think about it logically, our human senses are so limited. The bandwidth of the frequencies of light that we're able to see, very, very, very narrow band, what we can hear, the electromagnetic sensation that gives us our sense of touch, our taste, all of that is so limited. How can anyone think that that's all there is? So we're surrounded by energies and beings, dimensions and timelines and multiverse components, and on and on. It goes. It's very complicated. It's actually a frequency based phenomenon, not even interdimensional. Interdimensional sort of is more about spaces, spatial anomalies. But frequency, everyone understands that. We understand how cymatics work. We understand how frequencies produce energy, can restore health to the body, all these kinds of things. When you think in terms of frequency, what's the highest frequencies available to us? Things like faith and love and compassion. And so these beings have mastered all of these positive, or I should say higher frequencies. They have seen where we're at. They were like us, maybe 100,000 years ago, maybe 50,000 years ago. I don't know. It's different depending on the group. And so the thing is that I think there have been some ET groups, some councils and stuff that have been meeting with politicians and stuff. I think that's a fool's errand. And the extraterrestrials I have contact with also feel it's a fool's errand. And that's why they have their very own frequency-based system where they're literally raining down information on all of us all the time. But when we're ready and we can raise our frequency, that's when we're listening. That's when we start to get the messages. That's when we start to look into things. So I'm going to tell you right now, ET is not our savior. Now, there might come a time where some ETs will evacuate certain humans. It's not preferential treatment. It's whether or not you can hold the frequencies to even be able to do that. There's that. But we know, and we've been expecting a false ET invasion. And so to say that there's this huge craft, 5 times the size of Manhattan or whatever, and it's slowly moving towards us. No, they don't operate that way. They don't work that way. And also there's so much hidden technology that humans have already discovered, of course, not the common people, that they have all kinds of ways of reproducing technology to make it look like it's extraterrestrial, but it's not. So what I'm saying is, like, if you've got a religion and it's doing it for you, that's great. But religion has done a lot to hold us back. And we need to look in terms of frequency. So if you want to love Jesus, that's awesome. But let's start. If you're gonna love Jesus, then why not start acting like Jesus, thinking like Jesus, being more like Jesus, instead of just being high on the whole concept that you're high on God or high on Jesus. And so I don't know everything about ET contact, and I don't claim to. I know my experiences. They can be found in my book for those of you who are interested. That's another interesting thing, Chris. I found out that Amazon had been hiding my book for almost a year.
Oh, really?
All kinds of people have been gone and looking for it. Well, apparently they say it's my fault because I ticked the wrong box in the back, the back end. But they actually changed the information beside the box that I ticked that made my book undiscoverable, and I fixed it. It's now available and super easy to find, so I hope people give it a read. So I don't know if I covered everything that you wanted to know.
Regarding the Atlas phenomena, it started out as one object. Now it's 3 separate objects. And each image we get from NASA that's supposed to be a legitimate image is a bunch of garbled nonsense. It's very difficult to tell what we're looking at, and the scientific sources that are reporting about it have conflicting information coming out as well. So a lot of fear behind it, but what you're saying is it's not non-human craft at all. It is a pure psychological operation that these may not even exist?
Yeah, I think it's either a Psyop or a Psyop combined with technologies that humans already have. We've all heard about Space Force. What's that doing? No, we don't get any information about what Space Force is doing. There's secret space programs, all kinds of stuff you hear about, which is pretty hard to nail down any proof. And so I'm saying that maybe this technology is available and it's being set up to basically fool us, make us afraid. When we're afraid, we're more likely to take orders. When we stand in our power, we're a lot less likely to just do what we're told. We have critical thinking skills that we can use as long as we stay grounded. That's another purpose of my book, so people can stay grounded. I mean, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to follow what I say or anything like that. But if it makes sense to you, put that in your tool belt. And if it doesn't, throw it away and find something better,
You have to think of what is the most likely outcome, what has always happened, especially when we're presented something that sparks a lot of fear in the collective, an apocalyptic event, a highly traumatic event, these things that are predicted for a very long time, and we can follow the events that they talk about on the news, and we can follow the propaganda until it comes to a point where nothing happens. And everything that we've been subjected to was just pure speculation, pure propaganda. And it leaves us in a place where somehow we still fall for the next operation that comes along. And I think this is what we need to get past as humanity, is to stop trusting in these same systems, in the same groups, in the same people who we call our global leaders, who manufacture these same operations over and over again to keep dragging us back to that control system. And that seems to be all there is. Most likely what will happen is nothing, as it usually does. But in the meantime, there will be enough manufactured fear and paranoia to get some of their agendas to pass through. And that's usually what it's all about. So I do think we need to take a more grounded view at some of the things that especially are being presented by our government, by our media, because everything so far that has come out of those institutions have had levels of theater that go way beyond our understanding, and I don't see that changing unless we have a complete reset of our system. But it is definitely something to be aware of. To close out, anything else that you feel the audience should be aware of or should hear about?
Yeah, I got a clip I'd love to play
yeah.
now. Would now be a good time? Okay.
Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and I want to do a quick update about a document that got passed by the United Nations this weekend called the Pact of the Future document. It's two parts, one on science and technology and one about the youth and future generations. It is quite egregious, and it was done by a procedure called the silence procedure, which makes it a pact. And if no one objected, it is automatically adopted and put into the record as being completely adopted. This is the World Health Organization's runaround, or end around. Since they were not able to get the World Health Organization treaty passed, they decided to take it to the General Assembly. And it is even more egregious than what the World Health Organization was wanting to get passed. Let me just read you something really quickly about what is inside of this pact that is now being accepted by 193 nations around the world and equally open-armed accepted by our current administration. Everyone, it says that this is the power structure, fully digital and maximized for the control of the masses. Everyone will be expected to have a biometric digital ID that marks them not just as citizens of an individual country, but as a global citizen. So anytime you hear global citizen or anytime you hear sustainability, think that this is an egregious thing that's happening at the level of the World Health Organization and the United Nations. Anyone that has a dissonant opinion will be labeled as misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation and memory hold. Perpetrators for unapproved information will be fact-checked and punished by the system, which will be operated and enforced by artificial intelligence. Punishments will include being locked out of one's bank account, being unable to make certain purchases, unable to get on an airplane, on a subway, drive on public roads. This is the future, according to the world's self-appointed overlords at the United Nations. These are unelected bureaucrats that are making decisions about our country, our sovereignty around the world. Nothing could be more important at this point in time than to get prepared. Have water, food, digital access, flashlights, a way to communicate with family and friends. Now is really the time to get involved and get prepared, because this is what's coming. Our Congress is sitting on its hands. There was a press conference on the 17th about this, and no further action has been taken. So it's up to us to mobilize and to go forward, particularly with your local sheriffs, to get your constitutional sheriffs to say, this isn't going to be allowed in my county. Thank you very much. Take action. We've been talking about the onset of one world order, one world government, one world religion, one world money for a long time. Well, it's no longer coming. It's here.
Wow. Well, thank you, Karen. This is such important information for everyone to be aware of. Definitely have to have you back on to get more updates on everything. Before we let you go, remind the audience how to get copies of your book and anything else you got out there.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Um, So, Transdimensional Meet the New Neighbors is a book that I have out on Amazon. It's available on Amazon worldwide. I have a second book called Transdimensional 2 Meet the Greys picture book. It's more of a picture book rather than an informational reading book. And it just has tons of AI generated images. So, although I do use AI for images, I don't use it for any other content. But the book has 8 people all talking about their own experiences with the Greys. And the purpose of the second book is to help people to reduce their fear. Because if you get used to what they might look like, because these are not exact copies, they're not selfies or anything like that. But when you get used to it, you can see our common, dare to say, humanity, that they are not that different than us. So that if and when they do show up, you will not be afraid. You can use your critical thinking skills, you can stay grounded, and you can make better decisions for yourself. So there's the books. Also on Wednesdays, the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton, available on all audio podcasts under the Forbidden Knowledge Network. The Quantum Guide Show every Wednesday comes out on my channel and all over the place. And then, as I mentioned before, the Aliens and Angels podcast, which is every Sunday. And besides that, yeah, you can find me anywhere at Karen Holton TV or, of course, through Chris's wonderful network. Thank you all so much.
Awesome. Thank you again, Karen. I'll have those links in the description for everyone. And until next time, have an excellent evening. We'll all talk again tomorrow. We'll see you then.